June 6, 1944, 5:47 a.m. Oberst Heinrich Severinghausen stares at his watch inside bunker WN62, Omaha Beach. In the next 8 minutes, his world will end. 5,000 ships materialize through morning fog. He has 160 men. The Americans think they'll walk up the beach. He thinks 88 Miners guns will stop history. Both are catastrophically wrong. His hands shake as he lifts binoculars. What he sees breaks 200 years of military doctrine, a wall of steel stretching 12 kilometers in both directions. His radio man counts ships out loud, 100, 200, 400, then stops. There are too many. The Americans have assembled the largest invasion fleet in human existence, and it's aimed directly at his 200-meter stretch of sand. 5:50 a.m. Severinghausen orders his men to MG-42 positions. Each machine gun can fire 1,200 rounds per minute. He has 23 of them. Quick mental math. That's 27,600 bullets per minute. Surely that stops anything. But what they didn't know was that American planners already calculated this exact firepower and decided the beach was worth the blood price. The first landing craft touch sand at 6:30 a.m. Severinghausen gives the fire order. The bunker shudders as every gun opens simultaneously. Through the smoke, he watches the first wave, Company A, 116th Infantry, get shredded in 12 seconds. Bodies float in red water, exactly as Wehrmacht doctrine promised. Se isso já está brutal, você não tem ideia do que vem. Inscreva-se porque os próximos 42 minutos vão reescrever tudo que você sabe sobre guerra, 2 vídeos por dia. Then everything changes. The Americans don't stop. They don't retreat. Wave 2 hits the beach before Wave 1's bodies settle. Severinghausen's MG-42 gunners scream that barrels are melting. They've fired 40,000 rounds in 6 minutes. But the guns weren't the problem. What came next was 6:45 a.m. A single M4 Sherman tank crawls onto the beach. Severinghausen's 88mm gunner has trained for this moment for 3 years. One shot. The Sherman explodes. The crew cheers. Then they see what's behind it. 40 more tanks. The Americans brought an entire armored battalion to a beach. The Germans declared tank-proof. But that wasn't the worst part. At 6:52 a.m., Severinghausen watches something that makes his blood freeze. The destroyed Sherman, still burning, becomes a marker. American engineers sprint to it, plant flags, then direct the next 40 tanks around its exact position. They're not mourning their dead tank. They're using it as a navigation beacon. The Americans have industrialized grief. 7:12 a.m. Severinghausen realizes his fatal assumption. He planned for soldiers, not for a machine. The Americans aren't fighting, they're processing. Engineers blast obstacles while under fire. Medics treat wounded in the surf. This wasn't supposed to be possible. His defensive doctrine assumed chaos would stop them. The Americans brought their own order. His second-in-command reports the impossible. Herr Oberst, they're advancing through the minefield. Not around it, through it. American soldiers crawl over their own dead, using corpses to mark safe paths. Severinghausen watches a sergeant drag 3 wounded men using bodies as shields. The man takes 4 bullets. Doesn't stop. What kind of army trains men to do this? 7:33 a.m. Severinghausen sees their secret weapon. A colonel, George Taylor, standing fully upright in the surf, screaming, "Two kinds of people are staying on this beach, the dead and those who are going to die. Now let's get the hell out of here." 300 men rise from cover, into certain death, except something has shifted. 7:58 a.m. The bunker's ammunition counter hits 0 for the 3rd MG-42. Severinghausen faces a choice no officer training covered: redistribute ammo and watch other positions fall, or hold the line with empty guns. He chooses a third option. He lies, orders them to conserve ammunition while knowing there is none. They'll die, believing help is coming. Then the numbers become impossible. American casualties, 2,400 dead on Omaha alone. But they put 34,000 men ashore. Severinghausen's mental math breaks. For every German bullet, they sent 2 American soldiers. But what they didn't know was this ratio was planned, acceptable losses. The Americans budgeted for his success. 8:34 a.m. Bangalore torpedoes reach his wire. Severinghausen knows what's coming. 50 pounds of explosives to clear obstacles. The blast hits. Dust falls from concrete ceilings, but the explosion wasn't to breach defenses. It was a signal. 30 more torpedoes detonate simultaneously. In 47 seconds, everything flipped. His entire defensive line just evaporated. What happened next broke everything he knew. At 9:02 a.m., American engineers don't advance. They construct. While under fire from his remaining positions, they build roads. Armored bulldozers grade beach sand into highways. Severinghausen watches trucks drive onto Omaha Beach like it's a parking lot. They're not taking the beach, they're paving it. 9:47 a.m. His radio man intercepts American communications. Tear green clear, white sector open, easy red compromised but flowing. New color codes for beach sectors. They're discussing invasion like a logistics problem, not a battle, a delivery schedule. Severinghausen understands, to the Americans, D-Day isn't a fight. It's Tuesday, 10:15 a.m. The equation had changed completely. Severinghausen's naval observer reports battleship fire missions, not suppression, precision. USS Texas dropping 14-inch shells into bunker slits from 15 miles away. The spotter's math, bunker WN-71, impact in 40 seconds. Shell arrives in 38. The Americans have turned naval gunnery into a science. If you're seeing how impossible this was, hit that like button. Because at 10:52 a.m., Severinghausen makes his defining decision: bunker evacuation. Not retreat, tactical withdrawal to secondary positions, except there are no secondary positions. His men understand instantly. Some cry, some laugh. One corporal stares at the sea, counting ships until a sergeant stops him. But the Americans aren't pursuing. 11:20 a.m. Severinghausen expects fire and maneuver, basic tactics since Napoleon. Instead, engineers fortify the beach they just took, building defenses against counterattack before the attack concludes. They're fighting next week's battle. His training never covered an enemy who thinks in future tense. 11:58 a.m. Severinghausen surrenders WN-62 to a 19-year-old private from Ohio. The American offers water from his canteen. Severinghausen realizes this boy has fought through 4 bunkers today. This isn't his first surrender, won't be his last. The kid doesn't even look tired anymore, just efficient. The numbers don't lie. Severinghausen's 160 men killed 2,400 Americans. Those 2,400 bought beachhead for 34,000. Those 34,000 became 156,000 by midnight. By June 12th, over 1 million Allied troops stood on French soil. The math was always impossible. The Americans just didn't care about impossible. Then came the afternoon that shattered reality. 2:34 p.m. Severinghausen, now in a POW collection point with 400 Germans, watches American ships unload the second wave. Not troops, ice cream, refrigerated ships bringing dessert to a 6-hour-old battlefield. He watches Americans eating ice cream while his men get nothing. The war isn't over, but they're already planning peacetime. But what came next was the real nightmare. 3:15 p.m. Severinghausen sees something that makes no sense. German wounded being treated before American wounded. Red Cross medics, clearly marked, working on his men first. Stabilizing injuries, administering morphine, calling for evacuation. One medic explains in broken German, "Protocol says worst injuries first, regardless of uniform." 3:47 p.m. An American major approaches the POW cage. Severinghausen expects interrogation. Instead, the major asks about German defensive positions inland, not for intelligence, for evacuation routes. "Your artillery will target the beach tonight. We need to know where not to evacuate your wounded." The Americans are protecting German casualties from German fire. Severinghausen has no reference for this. 4:23 p.m. The Major returns with maps. Severinghausen recognizes them, his own defensive plans, captured from WN-60. But the Americans have annotated them. Red circles around civilian homes, blue squares marking churches, green triangles for hospitals. They're not planning an assault, they're planning occupation, and they're marking what not to destroy. Then everything inverted. 5:10 p.m. American artillery opens, not on German positions, on their own beach. Severinghausen doesn't understand until he sees it. They're destroying obstacles they haven't cleared yet, blowing their own defensive works to speed unloading. They're so confident of victory, they're demolishing defensive positions while still under German fire from inland positions. 5:55 p.m. Severinghausen watches American Seabees, construction battalions, pour concrete for a harbor, not temporary docks, a permanent harbor. On D-Day, they're building infrastructure for wars that haven't started yet. The bunker that took Germany 3 years to construct, Americans are replacing with a port in 3 hours of work. But what they didn't know was the German counterattack was coming. 6:40 p.m. Severinghausen hears it first, the distinctive sound of panzer engines. 21st Panzer Division finally released from reserve. 12 Panzer V's and 8 Tigers. The Americans have no heavy armor ashore yet, just Shermans. This should be a slaughter. Should be. 6:58 p.m. The Panzers crest the ridge above Omaha. Severinghausen feels hope for the first time in 13 hours. Then he sees the American response. No panic. No retreat. Tank destroyers that weren't there 10 minutes ago now occupy every beach exit. The Americans have radar-directed fire control. The first Panzer explodes before it fires a shot. 7:12 p.m. The counterattack dies in 11 minutes. 12 Panzers burning. American tank destroyers return to beach positions like nothing happened. Severinghausen watches the Panzer commander, Hauptmann 40, stumble into the POW cage, uniform still smoking. 40 just stares. They knew we were coming. They knew exactly when and where. What happened next shattered German tactical doctrine. 7:45 p.m. American intelligence officers arrive at the POW cage, not for interrogation, for information sharing. They show Severinghausen and 40 Allied intercepts of German radio traffic from the past 6 hours. Every order, every position, every counterattack. The Americans weren't guessing. They were reading German mail in real time. 8:20 p.m. The intelligence officer, Captain Morrison, explains almost apologetically, "We've had your codes since 1943. Your commanders keep using them anyway." Severinghausen realizes every defensive decision he made today, the Americans knew before he executed it. They weren't fighting a battle. They were following a script they'd already read. Then the night revealed the full scope. 9:15 p.m. Darkness falls on Omaha Beach. Severinghausen expects pause, consolidation, rest. Instead, stadium lights. The Americans have brought portable lighting systems. They're turning night into day. Unloading continues without pause. He watches the third wave arrive, 11,000 more men, like it's a morning delivery. 9:50 p.m. A young German lieutenant, Lieutenant Holst from WN-65, arrives in the cage, shell-shocked, repeating one phrase, "They're building a city." Severinghausen doesn't understand until Holst explains. The Americans aren't making a camp. They're constructing a field headquarters with communications, hospitals, supply depots, even a post office, on conquered ground still within artillery range. 10:35 p.m. American engineers roll out the first length of steel matting, portable roadway that unrolls like carpet. Severinghausen watches them lay 200 meters in 18 minutes. Roads that took his men weeks to build, Americans deploy in minutes. Then trucks use those roads immediately. There's no learning curve. They've done this before, many times before. 11:20 p.m. The numbers become surreal. An American logistics officer walks past the cage, arguing with another about flow rates. Not casualties or ammunition, tons per hour of supply delivery. They're complaining that they can only land 4,000 tons per hour. Only. Severinghausen's entire bunker had 12 tons of ammunition total. They're measuring in thousands per hour. But what they didn't know was Severinghausen kept a diary smuggled through POW camps. June 6th, 11:47 p.m. entry. I watched them build what we could never imagine. Not an army, a nation that unpacks itself from ships. They brought their civilization to our beach and assembled it in 18 hours. We were defending against soldiers. They sent a factory that produces soldiers faster than we can kill them. Midnight, June 6th, 7. The first full day ends. Severinghausen does math in his head. 156,000 Americans ashore. His 160 men killed, 2,400. Germany has 58 divisions in France, 280,000 men total. If every German kills at Severinghausen's rate and Americans replace at today's rate, the war is over. Just math. Just terrible, inevitable math. Then came the hours that broke the last illusions. 1:15 a.m., June 7th. American guards rotate shifts. The new guard eats steak and potatoes, hot meal on a battlefield, notices starving Germans, shares his food through the wire. Severinghausen refuses. The guard shrugs, leaves the plate. Your choice, Colonel. We got plenty. Severinghausen can't sleep. Through the wire, he watches the machine that never stops. Medics working, engineers building, ships unloading. No pause, no rest, just inevitability. Lieutenant Holst whispers the question every German officer will ask. Herr Oberst, could we have stopped this? Severinghausen watches another ship unload under stadium lights. We stopped 2,400 of them. They brought 156,000. You tell me, what number stops infinity? Then came the dawn that ended everything. 5:47 a.m., June 7th. Exactly 24 hours since Severinghausen first saw the fleet. He stands at the same cage position, watching the same beach. But it's not the same. Where there was sand, there are roads. Where there were obstacles, there are piers. Where there was a battlefield, there's a functioning seaport. American officers walk past, discussing not today's battle but next week's objectives. Severinghausen hears Paris by August and Rhine by December. They're not fighting the battle in front of them. They're scheduling the battles after this battle. Planning victory in layers he cannot comprehend. 6:30 a.m. American organization reaches absurd precision. A mobile laundry unit arrives to wash German POW uniforms. An American major explains the Geneva Convention requires same rations for POWs. So K rations arrive, better than German army food. Coffee, cigarettes, chocolate for starving men. Even a chaplain offering to process letters home via Red Cross. The Americans are running POW mail service while consolidating a beachhead. 7:15 a.m. An American colonel, same rank as Severinghausen, approaches the cage. Colonel Harrison, 1st Infantry Division, asks about the defensive plan, not for intelligence, for analysis. We're writing doctrine for the Pacific. Your setup was textbook. We need to know what worked. Then Harrison pulls out Severinghausen's own 1942 tactical manual on beach defense. We've been studying this 18 months. Brilliant work. The enfilade positions, obstacle spacing, kill zones, perfect design. Is what happened next. Broke the final barrier. Severinghausen realizes the Americans didn't just break his defenses. They studied them, understood them, then brought exactly enough force to render perfect irrelevant. Harrison confirms it. You did everything right. We just did more. 8:45 a.m. American engineers begin dismantling bunker WN62, not destroying it, studying it. Measuring wall thickness, photographing sight lines, documenting every position. An engineering captain explains, we're building training bunkers in England, exact replicas, so the next beach landing costs fewer American lives. They're turning his masterpiece into a classroom. 9:30 a.m. The numbers achieve final clarity. A logistics officer walks past, complaining about inefficiencies. They projected 6,000 tons of supplies by now, only landed 5,200. Only. In 28 hours, the Americans landed more material than the entire German 7th Army has in depot. And they're disappointed. 10:15 a.m., the cruelty of transparency. A Red Cross representative enters with forms. Severinghausen must document his men for notification to Germany via Switzerland. The Americans are broadcasting exactly who they captured, where they're held, their condition. Telling Germany their own success. The confidence is suffocating. Tell me in comments, could you have held that beach against this machine? Because at 11 a.m. June 7th, the fourth wave arrives. Not assault troops, civil affairs units, doctors, lawyers, reconstruction engineers. The Americans are bringing the occupation government before the country is even occupied. 12:30 p.m. Severinghausen overhears American officers debating casualty reports, whether to publicize the 2,400 dead or suppress it. One argues, the Germans need to know what it costs us, that we'll pay it anyway. They decide to publish full casualties, to show Germany that American losses don't matter. Even their transparency is a weapon. 1:15 p.m. War correspondent Ernie Pyle arrives, asks to interview German POWs for American newspapers. Severinghausen refuses. Pyle shrugs. Your choice. But Americans want to know the German side. They're curious about you. The enemy is humanizing him in their media, making him a person, not a monster. Severinghausen doesn't know which is worse. 2 p.m. June 7th, 32 hours since invasion. American MPs direct beach traffic with white gloves and whistles, like Broadway and 42nd Street. Order from chaos, system from slaughter. Severinghausen defended a beach. They built a civilization. 3:30 p.m. A mail clerk walks past carrying bags of letters. American soldiers receiving mail from home on D+1. Letters that left America 5 days ago before the invasion, arriving to men who might have died receiving them. The postal system is faster than the German army's ability to kill the recipients. 4 p.m. Colonel Harrison returns, sits outside the wire, shares a cigarette through the fence. Silent for 5 minutes. Then, you know what broke you? You fought a battle. We fought a schedule. You tried to win. We just tried to stay on timeline. Then the lesson that became Severinghausen's life's work. D-Day wasn't the question. We knew we'd win D-Day. The question was D+30, D+60, D+90. Today was just the first checkbox on a list of 200 checkboxes. You were defending a beach. We were opening a front. 5:47 p.m., June 7th. 48 hours since Severinghausen first saw the fleet. Everything has inverted. Ships that brought death now bring ice cream. Beach that ran red now has traffic jams. The bunker that seemed impregnable now trains future invasions. In 48 hours, the Americans didn't just win. They made the battle historical before it ended. June 7th, 6:30 p.m. Officers announce POW transport to England begins tomorrow. Severinghausen will cross the channel he defended from the wrong side. He'll see England, untouched, industrial, vast. He'll understand why the Americans seemed infinite. They were pulling from a source he never imagined. But the final twist haunted Severinghausen forever. 8 p.m., June 7th. An American intelligence officer asks about his watch, the one he checked at 5:47 a.m. on June 6th. Where did you get it? Severinghausen explains. Looted from a British officer, Dunkirk, 1940. The American nods. We're giving it back to him. He survived, made colonel. He'll land here next week. You can return it personally if you want. Se você quer mais histórias impossíveis, onde os números nunca fecharam, mas alguém venceu mesmo assim, inscreva-se agora. 2 vídeos por dia, mostrando quando a guerra virou matemática. The circle closes. The watch Severinghausen took from a defeated British officer in 1940, he'll return to that same officer, now his captor, in 1944. 4 years. The tide didn't turn, it inverted. June 6, 1944. The day Oberst Heinrich Severinghausen learned that some nations don't fight wars. They simply schedule victories and wait for the calendar to catch up. 5:47 a.m., the moment everything changed. Except it didn't change. It was already decided. Severinghausen just needed 8 minutes to realize it and 48 hours to accept it. The watch still ticks, the beach still stands, but the world that existed at 5:46 a.m., June 6, 1944, that world ended and never came back.